turn to just looking at beyond just the present moment, but start to get some perspective. You already kind of led into a little bit with implications for the coming year, kind of having a much longer perspective of when this is going to end. It seems less of an interruption, more of a significant disruption on all levels. Currently, to just kind of hone in on what we do, college campuses are all over the map in terms of whether their students are on campus, they're online, they're hybrid, they're not coming back after Thanksgiving. As missionaries focused on college campuses, what perspectives do you have for us regarding the shifting nature of our mission field?
Well, that's huge. I think one of the things that you said earlier in your question, so can I back the train back into that for just a minute?
Yeah, for sure.
You referenced it as being, I think it's back to the snowstorm thing too, like an interruption or a disruption type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's more of a, I don't know, I guess a disruption. For me, it's definitely had the sense of revealing. It's definitely for the church, I think, had the sense of sifting. Right. And so for me, what it is has been revealing for people left and right was modern day idolatry, modern day idols. Like, on what do I depend? On what do I depend for my personal comfort? On what do I depend to make me feel secure? On what do I depend to make me feel just even okay about my life, okay about myself? How do I feel valuable? It is unbelievable how this time has allowed people to like realize, oh my word, I had no idea how much I really, really loved my blank, fill in the blank, my time at the gym, my morning latte, my few minutes out of the house, my whatever it is, the meetings with my peers, it's revealing personal idols. And I think it's also been revealing ways in which the church is needing to be sifted. And I think it has to do, I mean, this is me wandering into your spaces, but it has to do with the entertainment culture. And what started as beautiful seeker sensitivity maybe took a turn towards an entertainment culture. And I'm not sure that God isn't lovingly trying to shake that out of us back to the basics of discipleship, back to the basics of heart on heart and Jesus. And are we giving them Jesus? But I just think hugely it's a disruption. So to that point, I wanted to share a quote that literally, I think I came across in February, the very, very, very beginning of this time. And it is shaped my entire time. It was like God deposited it to me, and it's been huge. It's an Oswald Chambers quote. It says, "It is not true to say that God wants to teach us something in our trials. Through every cloud he brings our way, he wants us to unlearn something." And I think that is what so much of this time has been about, is him lovingly taking things out of our hands that are dependencies that are not good for us, that are dependencies as church structures that are not good for us, that are not his ways. And so, so much of that has been, for me, that quote about the revealing in terms of he's got other things he wants us to grab onto, namely himself, namely to a deeper level of trust. And whew, this time will pull us there.
Yeah. You have to, we never get anywhere in this life if we don't accept reality. And the revealing is forced reality into our faces. 40 to 60% of the gathering church, the attending church, is doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Their faith was an event, a Sunday morning event, and that's it. Anybody whose faith was a lifestyle, who had learned to follow the crazy, wild, unpredictable directions of the Spirit of God, are generally fine in their faith. Like, they're used to following God where they wouldn't normally go. It's a lifestyle. So the one of the most significant things that any pastor can do right now is accept reality. Who you thought you had, who you thought was in your flock, who you thought was following, they're not all of them. So start there. This is who I've got. Changes your budget, changes your method, changes your the human resources you have available to you. You got to live there, which means simultaneously you got to let go of what was working or what you thought was working and start figuring out a new way to go forward. If you are not living in reality and still trying to do things the way you've always done them, it's a matter of time until you are no longer in existence.
And the correlation between, I hope people are keeping in touch with this, the levels of mental health problems, anxiety, the heightened levels of depression, the heightened levels of suicidality, and those are real. Those are real among Christians as well. It's not lost on us, right, that it's completely correlated with the church is not meeting. Our churches are not meeting. Those two things, these high levels are correlated with, yes, and for the first time in history, our churches are not meeting.
Or I can't accept the reality of what's going on. I want what I had before, whether it's church or not. It's this lack of embrace of reality. That'll always crank your mind in half, won't it?
So to his question about like, what can churches be doing? I'm like, it's back to basics. Yeah. It's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Do we actually believe we hold the keys to life in terms of the message of Christ? And so it might go back to, my goodness, I don't have anybody to preach to, but I can talk to this one person right here with this mask on 6 feet away, and I'll do it.
Yeah, we're doing gospel
because I
training.
Understand I have the keys to life. I understand that God is paring away all these things, and we're back to life on life. Will you just preach the gospel to the next person in your path? Will you go to the next one?
That's good. A question that comes to mind as you think about that, or as you guys were just talking about that, is this tension of there is reality and it's different, and letting go, which inevitably brings loss and sadness, while at the same time you need to you can't just sit in that and do nothing. And what you're saying is like you need to take the gospel. There seems to be like a lot of space for your own work to be done in there. Do you guys have thoughts just briefly on that before we go on, looking at perspectives of, just speak to that tension leaders experience between the loss of what was themselves and still pouring out?
Yeah, I think in the personal realm that I've gotten to sit with folks in, it's been about trust. It's been about trust that it's revealed, oh gosh, I didn't trust the Lord as much as I thought. I was trusting in my methods, or I was trusting in myself, or I was trusting in my giftedness, or I was trusting in my personality type, or I was trusting in my staff, or I was trusting in my budget. But I really was not trusting in the Lord. Like, I don't know where my paycheck's going to come from this month, and that is a good thing. Or I don't know how I'm going to execute the next thing we need to execute in our lives. And he's going to have to show us, and a level of like just exposing trust. And I've seen that across maturity continuums for sure, that it's just exposing everybody's trust. And God's calling us then to, I think, a deeper level of trust, which is such a gift, which is such an opportunity, which is such kindness.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to, the next question was just that. What do you believe God is doing in this season? What do you believe he has for us as followers of Christ? I don't know if it's that or something beyond, but what do you think God is up to in the midst of all this?
I think he's simplifying everything.
Yeah.
As much as people want to have their distractions and their busyness and their sophistication, and that makes us feel like we're in control of something because we have not 1 minute that we don't have something going on. People are learning how to be alone, how to have time where it's not totally filled, where things aren't near as complicated.
Learning to have to communicate with their family members to a degree that they hadn't before because the schedules were so full. So we were just, in the car everywhere together, or we were just, quick doing a meal together rather than like, oh, wait, I actually know the eye color of my children for the first time in my life. Or like, oh, wow, it's been years since my spouse and I have talked about these kinds of things. And that's a good thing, that God's calling us back to, like, here's the moment. And I don't know how many people have lost somebody during this time. Mike and I just yesterday, had to bury a really close friend, not due to COVID, but during COVID made it awful because this would have been a person whose life was massively influential and celebrated. And, you know, her life's mission, because she fought with cancer, was see the good. She left behind a 13, 11, 8, and 6-year-old, 4 children. And her whole thing the whole way through was, will you see the good? Will you see the good? And I think, is there not a message that our world needs, that there is still good, that there is still hope, that hope is real, that you can still be a person that lives from a place of genuine hope and peace, even in the midst of lots of the things that you enjoyed about life being stripped away? Will you be a person that carries that message? Will you lead your people in that? But you can't be led in that unless you believe that in the secret place with Jesus.
Yeah. There's so many people, I even wonder if they're Christians. Like, for real. It's like, this is pretty basic stuff. I read an article the other day by a Christian author. It was listing 10 things that your leadership capacity needed an overhaul. And the 10 things he listed that would detect, that would show you that your leadership was lacking, I was like, those things or point to whether you're a Christian or not. Yeah, I wish I could remember them right now, but every single one of them was like, I'm like, if you're struggling with that, you're not even saved. Those are all character issues related to the gospel. And you're pointing to, it's a leadership issue. Well, yeah, it is a leadership issue. You get to the bottom of that, and it's like, that's your character you're talking about. There's fears, and you're it's just like, I think, man, we're all great Christians when everything's great, and suddenly it starts falling apart all around us. And I think, how many people, these Christians, they don't have any hope, they're losing their minds, the anxieties are flying. It's like, holy mackerel, you need Jesus.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Take this going a little bit further with this. Do you believe, just looking at our collegiate churches, our movement that's focused on bold proclamation of the gospel, intensive leadership development, and college church planning, do you think there's something for us specifically, knowing all that and our missional context, that God has for us in this?
The first thing that came to my mind was Isaiah 9:7. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end.
Why do you have to bring government into this? Who'd you vote for?
Go further with that. So there's no end. How does that? I don't want to read how that applies to what the question was.
We are on mission with an ever expanding kingdom that's not going to stop expanding. We're on mission with the truth, and his church is going to continue, person by person, bit by bit, step by step, conversation by conversation, right? He's the only rock. He's the only refuge. He's the only fortress. People are looking for a place of stability. He's the only one. He's the only one. He alone is the rock. He alone is our fortress. He alone is our stability. Our hope comes from him. Psalm 62, Psalm 91. Like, if we believe these things deep inside, and we're willing to just continue to take those into whatever space is in front of us, being willing to morph with, I preferred my ministry looking another way. I preferred my life looking another way, but that is not what God has before me. But I say yes to what God has before me. And I continue to believe, okay, the reason I can say yes to that is because He is my source. He's my source. Okay. And in doing so, I can believe I'm on mission with an ever increasing kingdom that's never going to end. The truth of Jesus is going to continue to spread until He meets us face to face. You can't go wrong.
You can come along with the Spirit of God and what He's doing, or you can resist it and hang on to your own thing, and it won't be good.
And that's either hang on to your own thing personally, is what we're saying today, and hang on to your own thing even in the church context.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this stuff plays right into Collegiate's hands. That we do have to, just like every other church, have to break away from the idol of experiential, big splash kind of Sunday morning, expensive gathering type stuff, which we have bought into that to some degree as Collegiate. Those are the churches that have arrived, right? You've arrived if you started a church and you got to this point. Now you've got a mass of people. They're listening to you talk, and you've got a great worship, and it's attractive to people. Then that's when you've made it. But the Heart of Collegiate's never been that. The Heart of Collegiate's been in the dorms, in the trenches, leading people to Christ. And I just think, get back to that. Let this other. This is, and you don't even. This is like, it's free. It's like at the beginning of a football play when the guy throws the flag, and then you can just toss one down the field because it doesn't even matter. You're not allowed to gather right now. So you could say, oh man, we'd have such an amazing thing if we could right now, but we can't. So we just have to do it like this. And I think just eat it up. This is the opportunity. No one's getting graded. Everything you do right now is a free shot. No one's, if you can accomplish discipleship in church right now in some way.
Yep.
No one's going, well, that's not a good way to do it. Or you're not doing it like this. Like, no, this is just get back to your basic roots. Train people on how to share the gospel again and see people come to Christ, and don't worry about the big gathering.
I don't know if I should actually share this, but it's funny because
whenever you start with that, Tammy,
well, you're in. You're all in now.
Right. But problem solving real time with a lot of the pastors that I sit with in this time, more than once, this phrase has come out of my mouth, which is, well, you have COVID as an excuse. Like, to let that program go that your elders were so invested in, but we just can't do it right now because of COVID, or not your elders, but whatever, to use COVID as an excuse to hide behind in some ways, to allow the change that needs to happen. It is an opportunity in that.
Well, you have to lead through it though. Everyone's kind of leaning, like whether it's an excuse or you hide behind, or whether it is the reality again. The question is whether or not you can get people to come along into it and engage it, rather than wait around or complain about what they don't have. It's a leadership issue for whoever's left, right? You don't have to lead your whole church anymore. You're leading like a third of it. So that's easier, but you do have to lead them down a new path. That's the critical necessity of a pastor right now, is can you lead who's left into a new space? But yeah, this is a free shot at something new. Everything you can say, we're just trying this out.
And I think that, the tension that obviously is coming out in the two of us, our two perspectives, is, and you can't lead there if you're not leading yourself. If you're not leading yourself well, in terms of why we're here talking about spiritual, emotional, physical health, that kind of thing.
Yeah, which is actually where I want to go. So thanks for the awesome transition, Tammy. We, in these conversations over November, December, have been leaning into a focus on personal health, both in the various dimensions of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, relational. How are you guys pursuing personal health in the season, and what advice would you have for us?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out how I could just capture it for all of the leaders that we'll be talking to. Yeah. And it is, if you haven't chosen to change in addition to the forced change that's been forced upon you, then you're probably not doing very well.
Say that again.
Yeah. If you haven't personally said, oh, I need to change, in addition to the forced changes that have come your way, then you're probably not adjusting very well, because this time requires a level of self-care that most people in leadership are not good at.
Yeah. I don't know if I've made any changes. You might know better than I do if I've made any intentional changes, but I tend to live in a change posture with regard to the church. So I'm always thinking about what's next and how we do the next thing and how we change and how we adapt. And I'm more entrepreneurial than I am maintaining. And so this has been more like the whole thing, like I said earlier, is somewhat invigorating for my soul. So I don't know, but I know there's places where I'm kind of breaking down, but I don't know how to name it very well.
Well, rather than expose Mike here,
Which I don't mind,
I would
care.
say a couple of the things that I hear coming out of my mouth regularly when I'm processing with leaders of various types, especially pastors and people in ministry, is you need a hobby that has a beginning and it has an end. I don't care if it's making birdhouses or running like marathons or, remodeling your basement or your fantasy football league that starts at this time and ends at this time, because ministry is never done. And so there's a certain sense in which having a hobby that has a beginning, a middle, and an end is critical. Like, so where you can be like, I did that thing, I'm done. That's huge for someone whose work is never done and basically not even close to measurable during these times. I find myself.
How's that exposing to me?
It's not.
Oh,
I mean,
it is. I need a hobby.
Well, we could talk about that off screen.
I don't have any hobbies. I do know that.
We've been trying to get you one.
I know you can't just decide to have a hobby, can you? That's the thing I keep telling her. It's like you can't just pick a hobby.
Yes, you can.
Throw a dart at a board. Okay, I'm going to be, I don't know.
But you have interests, and you can get a hobby by mining your interests.
My only interest is the church and my family. And you. And
I can't be your hobby.
I wish you could. It'd be great. Why not?
So anyhow,
people pick up hobbies because they realize they didn't have one and need one.
I didn't hear all that you said, Jay. Say it again.
Midlife crisis. People that pick up new things is people often realizing they need a hobby.
Yeah.
Well, because especially in ministry, to be honest, you need to see something that finishes. You need to see something. I did that, and I can be done with that. I worked on that, and that's done. Seriously, that's actually a true thing about people in ministry, because it makes them crazy how you can't ever check like, oh, my church work is done. You can't ever check it off your list. And especially for certain personality types, that's hard. The other thing I find myself talking about over and over and over again, more than ever in these times. Now, it's a through line to all of the conversations I have with leaders, but in COVID, it's been huge. And that is, you've got to find true peers. People that know what it is to carry the kind of load that you carry, to have the kind of intangibles that you have when it comes to, working with the kinds of people that you work with. Because yes, CEOs of companies, okay, yes, they're good, except for they don't work with volunteers. Volunteers are a completely different beast, for instance. You've got to find true peers. And so I find myself talking in that regard. It's paramount to find true peers. Yeah. So I'll tell you what.
Have a project. Let's do the P's. Get a project.
Did I say project?
No, but that's what I can do. Can't get a hobby, but I can do projects.
Yes, that's true. You've done projects.
I do projects.
Yes.
I just don't. They're not hobbies. So have some projects. Get some peers.
Projects and peers.
What's your third one? What's your third one?
Projects and peers.
You just say what it is. I'll come up with the word.
Okay, I didn't have a third one.
You be about ready to go on to the next thing.
I wasn't.
Very well. It's just projects and peers then.
Projects and peers.
Projects and peers, and I don't know how you're going to find this, but if you have not been a person that has paid attention to your emotional health as a leader, I will tell you, this time you have to. You have to. In the past 3 weeks, I've had every ministry person I've had in my office, and I'm going to use this gender because it's actually the data points that I have right now. He, of the last 5 or 6 pastors that I've had in my office, and they're all he's either cried or turned in his resignation to the elders.
Well, anybody who is going to cry should turn their resignation in. The heck?
No, he did not. No, he did not just do that.
Crying?
Because it is such a tough time. And I think it's really important for people to realize, like, you've got to tend to your emotional self. So if you've tended to be a person that has been like, go, 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 or like that stuff, I'll get to it whenever. I'm not afraid of emotion. I'm pretty good, but you've never really looked at, like, what are my major issues? Like, if you can't name what your major issues are, you probably need to take the time and get with somebody to be able to do that at this point in your life.
Yeah. I think it's been helpful to be more emotional during this time for me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm making fun of it, but it's like there's something cathartic about, and maybe it's another way to lean into the pandemic. It is sad. There is trouble. It is hard. It is inescapable. And so the third P would be pay attention to your inner self. So peers and projects and pay attention to your emotional IQ and lean in.
Way to go, Smitty.
Or maybe get a project to find peers who are crying a lot or something like that. And that can help you get along.
It's a good thing people in Collegiate know you and love you.
They know me.
So to wrap up this section, and then we're gonna shift a little more onto the spiritual side of things. We asked the Collegiate if there were any questions out there people had for you, and we got 2 that kind of fit in here. One says, I hear the staying active physically is really helpful to mental health. Can you speak to the importance of staying physically active in a pandemic season based on what you've experienced personally or seen in others?
Is it okay just to say yes to that?
Huge. Yeah. Whoever wrote the question, like, I don't know if you actually planted it to plant a seed to somebody you wanted to hear it, but the reality is couldn't overestimate that and couldn't emphasize that anymore. It's so true. I'm
guessing their spouse is telling them they need to exercise. And they're looking for some professional to go, it's not really related.
Hey, or the other way around.
I can be mentally healthy without physical exercise. Someone's like, you need to get out of the house. You're 40 pounds overweight. You need to get out there and exercise. That's why you're breaking down.
Like, my guy at Fortnite runs really fast. Yeah. He is good. The guy at my Fortnite skin is a fast runner. It's fine.
You don't even know what you're talking about. My Fortnite skin runs really fast.
Stop it.
All right. The second one was, in a similar vein, can you speak to the importance of keeping our kids physically active when all sports are canceled? Are physical activity and mental health correlations as strong as they are for kids as adults? Or are those correlations with kids just not as strong?
I would say they're actually stronger.
Well, maybe the correlation isn't stronger, but a kid that can't be active and isn't active is going to be worse off emotionally than, you know what I mean? It's like they need even more space to run and go.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, keep saying it. That's all I'm saying. Just trying to encourage it.
It's seriously, I think it's stronger because kids don't yet know how to verbalize their emotions. They don't yet know how to, all sorts of ways. They don't know appropriate emotional expression, especially under the age of 11. And then, and so it's got to come out of their bodies. It's got to work itself out by yelling and screaming in ways that can't generally happen inside houses, by punching things and by rolling around and things that are crunchy and things that are a little ouchy, and then feeling the softness of things that aren't. They literally have got to be outside. This is why so many of our kids are not doing well. What are you laughing at?
We're just looking at each other as you're saying all this, thinking of our own kids, our daughter, our son.
Yeah.
They're,
How old are they?
10 and 7.
Yeah, there you go. Right, right. Because they have just as many emotions as we do, if not more, and they don't know how to self-regulate. They don't know how to express those. They don't know how to get those out in appropriate ways. And so part of working it out physically is what God gave them to be able to do. That's why, they're so squirrely, especially when you get two little boys together. Have you noticed this? Trying, excuse me, trying to work it out.
Yeah, they're like little barometers too.
Yeah.
They carry the emotional content of the home. Lack of physical exercise in the home, they're going to start, coming out sideways, and you're going to be like, pull it together. And they really are just exposing
Mm-hmm.
in their way what's going on in the house. Really, if the kids are out of whack right now, you probably got your own stuff that's kind of going in there and then coming out of them sideways. Look in the mirror when the kids are out of whack. It's usually a good reason for it.
That's good. Well, I want to shift, and this is where I said I would love for you guys to just start pointing us to Jesus. I'm going to I think Tammy's got the first question for you.
Yep. Is there a verse or scripture that has been impacting or helpful to you in this season?
Well, not this season, but just like yesterday. And I thought, boy, it would have been good to be on this earlier in the season. Come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart. You'll find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. I don't think we believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, this is hard. People are literally dying. The burdens are heavy. This is crazy. There's brokenness and loneliness and isolation. And as I was processing this thing, I'm thinking, those aren't Jesus' burdens. He didn't put that on us. Those are the world's burdens. Those are the consequences of our own mistakes, either individually or corporately. All the weight and crap and brokenness and isolation that we experience is brought on by us or the evil one that rules the darkness in this world. Jesus' burden? No, it's not hard. He goes with us. What he asks us to do, we can do. He can do with us. It's not rocket science. It's not powerlifting. It is very simple, trusting,
Trust me.
Spiritual guiding, gentle opposition. It's not a huge weight. Well, even if we did believe that, it doesn't make us feel very important. Not doing heavy lifting, strong, breaking my back. I need, everyone to pray for me kind of, it's like, well, that's no fun. It's like, yeah, but no.
The verse that is coming to my mind as Mike speaking is John 16:33, where Jesus said, in this world, you'll have trouble. He straight up said it. Why are we so surprised that a pandemic is happening? Why are we so surprised there's trouble all around? Why are we so surprised when yet another bad thing is happening inside of 2020? Why are we so surprised? He said, in this world, you'll have trouble. And he said, but take heart. I've overcome the world. There's a way that we can, what does that phrase take heart mean? Right? There's a way that we can live from within, that we can live from where his spirit resides, and that there's overcoming possible when we live from that space, which is, again, points us to, that's why we have to know what's going on inside us. That's why we have to know what's going on emotionally with us. That's why we have to tend well our own souls. If we're too busy, we're too outward, we are not going to be able to take heart. And if we can't take heart, we're not going to have what we need to be overcomers in a troubled world. I mean, he gave it to us. In this world, you'll have trouble.
Yeah.
But take heart, I've overcome the world. That wasn't my verse.
Yeah. Take heart. It's okay. Be confident in, be secure in, rest in the reality that I have overcome the world. And then the challenge is, well, what does that mean? I overcome the world. We tend to think, okay, I rise above the world. I've overcome it. I've gone beyond it. I'm no longer it's like, no, to overcome the world is to be in the middle of it. It's the storm picture. It's the picture of Jesus in the storm. The storm initially is raging, and he has overcome, he's in it, and it's fine. To overcome the world isn't to escape all the weight of the world, to escape all the burdens of the world, to escape all the brokenness and the pain of the world. To overcome the world is that stuff doesn't drown you. It doesn't take you under. I've overcome. It's like you can rest in me, and all of this mayhem can be going on, and you're fine. I've overcome it. It doesn't make it go away.
What'd you say, Tammy?
Makes me think of a surfer. When you catch the wave just right and it goes above your head, and you're
Yeah.
where it's like calm.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
If it's all done, then you.
Heck yeah.
And,
Right.
And if you're not on that surfboard, you're drowning. You're being pounded up against the rocks, right?
Catch the wave wrong.
Yeah, or catch the wave wrong, or catch the wrong wave, right? So, and then, but if you've got Jesus, you got that surfboard, dude. You know what I'm saying? If you got a surfboard, you're harnessing. There's power there too. There's tons of power, right, all around that. That's a great metaphor.
You said twice now, Tammy. It goes back to what is it? The pay attention to yourself, as you know, your third P, as Mike honed it in. But you just said the importance of knowing what's going on inside of you again.
Yeah.
And in my thought, I go to not.
It's an endless discourse of what's going on inside of you. What's going on inside of you?
Yeah,
it never ends.
Here's the challenge, Mike. We're not married to a doctor like you are who can help you along. So those of us who don't have a doctor in our life like that, or maybe we don't have a counselor or the means to get to a counselor all the time. Some in our movement are single. They're not even living with someone in this space.
Yeah.
Do you just have a quick thought of like, what could we do on a personal level just to stop and try to get connected with that or self-assess and understand?
Well, yeah. So this is I don't mean to be condescending here. God will always meet you in this place. This is his very heart. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and see if there's any anxious thought in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. He is a God who says, listen, that's a prayer I'll always answer, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That's Proverbs 3. It's like, listen, you got to know what your own understanding is. You got to pay attention to how you think about things, and then choose to trust me instead of the way you think about things. 2 Corinthians 10:5, we take captive every thought to make it obedient to the knowledge of Christ. Psalm 51:6 says, you desire truth in the inner places, truth in the inner parts, wisdom in the inmost place. There's a reality too. If you sit down, I don't care what kind of personality type you have, and you have the intention on a nature walk to meet with God, he's not going to play hide and seek with you. If you sit down with a piece of paper and say, God, I get it, that I've got stuff. Would you, by your Holy Spirit, try to start to show me what my stuff is? And you have a heart that wants to hear and see that stuff? Yeah, start to write. If you think, God, I know I need to pay more attention to my internal self, and you pick up the Zero book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, or a book like Soul Healing or something like that, he's going to meet you in that place. He's going to illuminate that for you. So you can't do, like, here's what I say about that, Jason. Something is always better than nothing. So if you're alone, if you're with a group, just what's the next step you can take towards, God, would you illuminate what's going on actually in my internal self, in my emotional self, in my spiritual being, so that I might be a more clean and pure vessel for you. He will always do that. So the verse that I was going to say earlier to you, the one that's been particularly compelling to me in this time is Isaiah 43:19. See, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it?
But I think it all goes, that's very good. It's very good. I think I've said this oftentimes from the pulpit when I'll say, okay, and maybe it's just trying to provide a practical application for what it is you need to apologize for, or where it is that you need to ask forgiveness, or where your weaknesses are. And people say, well, you got to help people figure that out. I'm like, really? No. People know what's wrong with them. They know what they need to apologize for. Come on, people know where they're misfiring and where their weaknesses are. That's not the issue. And if you ask God to show you with more clarity what it is, He will show
He
you.
will do it.
The problem is pride. It's always pride. It's the thing I find most prevalent in pastors that are not living a healthy life. They're go back to my very first statement. They're not willing to face reality about themselves. They don't want to see it. They know it's there. They don't want God to show it to them because they've worked their whole life to build themselves up into somebody that's looked up to, that's respected, that's smart, that's a good Christian. And it's like, I'm not going to go down in there and let God tear me down and break that down and show my weaknesses and all that. God will, you know what's wrong with you, and God will dig in there and help you work on it. But if you have too much pride to go there, it's too humiliating for you. You've been hiding from it your whole life, and you finally, it's like, okay, well, then you're never going to see what's going on inside you.
Can I tell you the truth about the ones that I've seen that I've gotten to walk with in the counseling space be most successful during the pandemic time?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, there were probably in the past 2 years, there's probably been 3 or 4 youngish, I'm going to say old enough to be smart enough to do this, but pastors who just were proactive. There was nothing wrong in their lives.
Yeah, look at that.
There was nothing wrong in their lives. They just saw that people are burning out in ministry, and I don't want to be that guy or that gal. They're burning out in ministry. I don't want to be that person that burns out and is like completely cooked by the age of 40 or 45 or especially 50. I don't want to be that person. So they've walked into my office between the ages of 35 and 40 and said, hey, I'm just here proactively. So we started doing it like a gym, right? So it's not like the ICU, which is where most people come into counseling. They just came in and we started just kind of casually like going through their issues. And what are your issues? Guess what? Those are the ones I've seen do the best during COVID because they got ahead of their stuff.
It's just humble. It's just humility.
Yep.
It's someone that's going, hey, you know what? I'm susceptible.
And I'm submitting myself to somebody else looking into my life.
Yeah, they're actual Christians.